Continuing here. So, yes, you can see, obviously, your taxes would plummet, okay, because vast amounts of money go into the dubious warfare industrial complex, the crime industrial complex, the social welfare industrial complex, the financial industrial complex. Vast sums of tax dollars go into these entities. And so, of course, your taxes would plummet. Of course, we'd have a lower work week. People would be doing jobs that were necessary. Okay, if all these jobs became unnecessary, the vast majority became unnecessary, it's okay. Be doing other things. You don't worry because it's your planet too. You understand? We all have a right to ask, fundamentally, whose planet is this anyhow? Okay, well, it's God's planet. We see. Okay, yes, and who are we? We're God's children. We have an inherent right to share in the wealth of this planet. It's all very simple. Child, it makes sense. Yeah. So nobody should be in fear ever. We should not be born into this kind of fear. Okay, told we have this noose around our necks, this cost of living tax, as it's euphemistically referred to as. Well, they don't say tax, but if it's stuff you can't get away from, okay, then for all intents and purposes, it's as bad as onerous as any tax. Okay, and housing is one of those things. It's shelter. It's an essential human need. So to deny somebody housing, the ability to create their own housing, hell, I mean, a bird, we give the bird the right to make a nest, but we take it away from human. Oh, no, that's government property. That's pub. No, you can't do it there. That's private. No, you can't do it there. No more homesteading. No. So we're making all the rules, and we're going to just let our own native sons and daughters die out in the cold, and this is all, normalized now. We accept it. We've moved the Overton window. We've got the level of what the public is willing to accept in line with what we want. We want genocide, and at the same time, we want to tell them they're all bad for not wanting all the immigrants. They're mean to come here, where our own destitute poverty is neglected and ignored. That's okay. And then they want us to make some sense of this. I mean, how are we not all insane? These people are trying to render us their image and likeness. But if we were, can you imagine the madhouse? I mean, society is tough enough, but could you imagine how horrible it'd be if we were all evil? I mean, the decent, upright people, the righteous out there are the fabric, the glue of the fabric, holding society together in any measure. So who are the people that have driven up our cost of living tax through inflation and debasing our currency? And I point out over and over in this series of videos that it is like a scale. So when your cost of living goes up, the worth of your currency goes down. It's very unnatural. And the only time that should happen is if there is a disruption in the supply chain. That's it. And then it's only temporary. And then we go back to the trajectory where your currency continues to go up in worth. Okay, because we, as a civilized society, find easier and easier methods to produce the things we want and need. You understand that we're talking about collusive special interests that would do this to us. They benefit, they profit at your loss, my loss, our loss. And they trick people into believing that it's the right thing to do. It's a good thing to do, to debase your currency. They promote high housing costs as good. Well, the equity in your house went up for no reason. You didn't do any improvements or anything. It's an old house, and like an old car, it's supposed to diminish in worth, value, cost, price. Duh. But no, they've convinced you that, no, there's rhyme and reason, there's logic, and it's capitalism. They'll blame capitalism for this, the debasement of your currency through inflation. Do you understand? Children can understand this stuff. I know they can. So what do you got? You got all the real estate companies, right? And property management companies who represent a lot of landlords. You understand? All the collusive special interest groups. The worst one of all is the government. And you say, well, how is the government colluding? How are they involved? How are they a special interest group? Well, the only legitimate government is we, all the people, not some of the people, for one thing. So we're talking about government entities that benefit from higher taxes, right? So when they raise real estate costs, values, prices, worth, then they get more taxes. So it's a very simple equation to understand the incentive, the motivation behind why the government would be involved, or certain government entities, well, why they would be in favor of driving up housing costs. So they've done this. They've made us all evil. Basically, they've made us all evil. Okay, it's horrible. It's just horrible. So who else benefits out there? So the innocent little homeowner that sits back and says, "Hey, wow, this is good for me," but we don't understand. It's short-sighted. You understand? What are we doing? What are we leaving future generations? A cesspool of misery. God, I mean, we're so screwed up as Americans, and by extension, the rest of the world, because we're influencing everybody. We're screwing things up all over the world because people are looking to us to set an example. Like it or not, if you're an American, I mean, that's your lot. You got to put, we got to put our big boy and girl pants on and accept the fact that, that's our lot. That's our fate as Americans, is to, set an example, like it or not. We've got to give a damn, man. We've got to care about other people. And we've got to understand basic, rudimentary, fundamental economic principles. We've got to be able to decipher between true capitalism, which produces progress, which has a definite criteria to meet, okay, socially, politically, and economically speaking. There's litmus tests. There's evidence for how to define progress, and it creates this rising tide of prosperity across the board, is what true capitalism produces. And I've already explained how, through supply and demand, free market, risk and competition, all these things play on the market. So gradually it would lead to that. But we haven't had true capitalism. And this is the biggest driver of all the promotion of socialism. People blame capitalism, but they don't understand. So you need to understand. We haven't had true capitalism. We've been manipulated up one side and down the other. Collusive, special interest groups, fixing prices, rigging prices, manipulating markets. It's been very powerful. It's been very effective. And the mainstream media has been culpable because they don't do anything to educate the people about fundamental economic principles and true capitalism. And they're supposed to be the cutting edge educators, in my opinion. I mean, they're giving us information, right? What is information? Isn't it akin to education? Isn't it supposed to be accurate and trustworthy? But that's maleducation. That's malinformation. We've got to know the truth. The truth is, you want your currency to go up in worth. That's progress. That's capitalism. And so what turns people socialist when they think it's egalitarianism? Because they hate capitalism and they don't understand the first thing about true capitalism versus crony capitalism, that these things produce opposite effects. I mean, we're my friends, look, I just can't stress, I'm scared. I'm scared for humanity, what it's going to take to finally jar us out of our slumber, to say we cannot just be apathetic and complacent and indifferent about other people's suffering. I don't care how good your finances look, how secure you feel, okay, financially speaking. You've got to care. You've got to say, I don't want this if it's bad for other people. I don't want to profit at other people's loss. I don't want to be a part of this thing. I want to be a friend of God and humanity. I want to love. I want to care. I want positive change. I want progress, real progress toward a better world. I want God's will to be done on earth as it is in heaven. I want the Lord's Prayer to come true. And what does that mean? Well, it's very idealistic. It's very noble. It's very pure-hearted. And, you want those things enough, and you burn with desire for those things, hungering and thirsting for righteousness to be the rule of the day on earth. And I firmly believe, I wholeheartedly believe God is faithful and true, And he'll reward you with those things you feel worthy and deserving of. And you want to be in that place, and you don't want to be alone. This isn't the kind of thing you keep to yourself. This is the kind of thing we have to share. Okay? We are incredible creatures. We're part of something big, something cosmic, something eternal. We're going to be living and growing as beings, godly beings for all eternity. And, that's what you want. Life is good, death is bad. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that. I hate the predator-prey paradigm. I hate temperature extremes. Right now it's cold. My hands are cold. It's very unpleasant. I don't like it. Sometimes I feel like the cold is literally trying to murder me. And I'm sure I'm not alone. And I object. I like it about 75 to 80 degrees, maybe a light breeze. I find the cold uncomfortable, and I find the heat uncomfortable, being sweaty and miserable. I hate natural disasters. I hate thorns on roses. I hate disease. I hate death. But I thank God that I do not hate any living being. And it's crucial for people to understand where all the negative aspects of our human existence originate from, in order not to think God is a big fat a-hole. And it's important for us to distinguish organic human suffering, which goes back to the original sin, the eating of the forbidden fruit of knowledge of good and evil, the fall of man, and the subsequent curse that befell us. That's when all this organic suffering, the aforementioned organic suffering we all have to experience as human beings, came to be. When we believed the lie, the very tricky lie, the intellectual dishonesty of the serpent. If it was a straight up lie, we would have seen through it. But when he said, oh, surely you're not going to die, he's jealous. He doesn't want you to have the same power he has, right? So it's a good argument. He's a smooth talker, and okay, that sounds right. And surely you won't die. So he was telling a half truth. You understand? Deception. It's very cunning, very powerful in that respect, diabolical, devilish, scheming. So we ate of this fruit. Our ancestors did, and it got in our DNA, our genetics. So science can prove this original sin now, and how disease and death entered at that time. And so now this is what we all have to face. So the price of our sin, of turning our back on God and listening to the serpent, is death. The wages of sin are death. So this is what we all have to face. And the only one that can save us from death is Christ. This is what's proven. This is what's said to be true. He has victory over death. And he wants us to accept that victory over death. This is a beautiful thing. This is the good news. That our worst fears and nightmares of our loved ones and ourselves doesn't really exist. It's all a lie from the pit of hell. We can't really die. But we die in the sense that we get diseases and we eventually died. So Satan told a half-truth, the devil in the Garden of Eden, right? This is the metaphor, the allegory. This is where the story goes. So death entered the picture later, so he got away with it. Gotcha, you know what I mean? So, but to distinguish that suffering that's across the board, we all have to face. The rain falls on the righteous and the unrighteous alike, as does the sun shine on the righteous and unrighteous alike. But the artificial, invented, conjured up, manufactured suffering, unnecessary human suffering, is utterly insufferable, unnerving, untenable, perpetually, forever, indefinitely. It can't go on. And it won't. But it's going to be at the finger of God that's going to change it. And yes, we can all be a part of it as human beings. We could be his good and faithful servants of our own free will and accord. That's the only way he wants us to serve him, is out of love for him and humanity. following the 2 commandments that he gave us that superseded all the other 10, that they're all locked up in those 2. If we follow those 2, the other 10 fall into place. Love God, honor God above all else, everything, above everything, which makes sense since he gave us our very existence. And then love one another in the same way that he loves us. Display that, reveal that to other people. And everything will fall into place for us. It's our only hope. It's the best hope. It's the good news. Okay? That there is no death in reality. We're free. That he can save us. We can't save each other. We can't save ourselves. But we can point to one that can. And that's what we ought to do, even to the evildoer.